I'm Elaine Sims. I'm on the campus of St. Catherine's College in the Hunley Library. I have with me a lady that was with us at the end of last semester in the 2013-14 year, Dr. Tara Tuttle. And I had interviewed you one other time, right?
Mm-hmm. About the honors program.
About the honors program. I'll always... but Dr. Tuttle had a great adventure this summer, a journey, and we want to talk about that. But first, I always like to go back to what brought you to St. Catherine's, and then we'll move on from there.
I came to St. Catherine 5 years ago at this point. This is my 5th year here. And I was looking for a full-time position in English. I'm in the English department. And they had a position open, and a colleague of mine from my doctoral program was working down here and said, I know this is not what you had in mind, but you need to come check this out. She really enjoyed working here. And it was a big switch for me because I had been at large state
Where had
institutions.
you been?
I did my doctorate and some teaching at the University of Louisville.
Okay.
And then I was at Ball State University in northern Indiana before I came here.
Okay.
So big publics. And it was a big switch for me, but I had such a wonderful interview experience that I left here thinking, well, that is tiny and that will be very strange, but I really hope they call me back and offer me the job. And wonderfully they did. So it was a little bit of a culture shock, an institutional change, but I have loved being here, and I really love the smallness and what that allows us to do.
And what do you teach?
I teach English and liberal arts.
Okay.
And in the honors program.
Okay. And in the honors program.
Mm-hmm.
When you were here in the spring, we were talking about you were going to make a trip to France.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about what led up to you deciding to make that journey.
Sure. In my involvement here, I became the faculty mentor for a trip for the Dominican young adults. They were going to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, and they needed another faculty member.
Okay, now what are the Dominican Young Adults?
It's an organization of our undergrads, our young people, but there are chapters of this all across the United States, particularly at Dominican institutions. So it's a young adult organization that's focused on the Dominican values and Dominican pillars.
Okay.
And they're very social justice oriented, as are the sisters. And Mary Sue Barnett, our campus minister at that time, had organized this trip but wanted another faculty member to go. And so I accompanied them, which allowed me to see Dominican non-governmental organizations at work. We stayed in mother houses outside New York City, and so we got to meet members of their Dominican communities. And I was just incredibly impressed by the way these sisters really model scripture in action. It's a sight to behold.
So you did that, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, you heard about what was going to be happening in France. I mean,
Well, I had heard another faculty member who had gone on the trip talk about it, and I thought, wow, that was incredible. But I didn't really think about going until Sister Mary Louise Edwards just kind of adopted me and talked to me. She really wanted to maintain that connection from my involvement in the trip to New York. And we set up weekly lunch meetings, and she's just wonderful. And it was just delightful in a social sense, but also she really provided me with a lot of spiritual support and information on Dominican history and Dominican pedagogy. So she kept putting books in my mailbox, and we kept talking about these wonderful readings. And I was very moved by those readings as well, and became really very passionate about learning the legacy of our institution and the Dominican legacy. And she finally suggested that this was the time for me to go to France. And I thought, yeah, she's right. I really want to do that. That's something that would be really meaningful.
how many candidates, are there candidates for this program, or do you just randomly, do people apply and then they select so many, or?
Generally, there is an application process at most institutions. We're so small that Sister Mary Louise can gauge who is invested in the Dominican mission. So really, it was just a year in which I was handpicked because of things that she had already seen me working on that seemed in line with the Dominican pillars.
Okay. In a nutshell, What is the Dominican mission? I mean, can you put that in a few words? Or,
I can
or-
try.
Or a lot of words?
I can try. We have what are called the 4 pillars, the values around which we organize the institutional values and mission. And they're prayer, service, community, and study. And they're described in different ways depending upon which institution you might be at. But it's very inclusive and open. So one need not necessarily be Catholic. We welcome everybody here. And they're values that can apply to anyone, regardless of the particulars of their faith. But prayer, study, community, and service. Study, of course, is the main focus of the college. But community is something that people involved in the college really see.
And we see that in these interviews
Yeah.
time after time.
Absolutely. It's entirely possible here, and we try to be very supportive here, which is one of the wonderful things that a small institution can do. We can really keep tabs on everyone and make sure everyone is included and provide them opportunities for that kind of holistic development. But those are the values that guide our institutional practices and policies and are shared by the Dominican Associates and the Sisters.
Okay. So you went through this with Sister Mary Louise, then she told you about the program, then I don't know that we talked about the funding, but I don't know that is important. It was worked out, whatever how you did it. I think you did some fundraising of your own, and then they helped to support you. And you went in June? Was it in June?
The very end of May and the first few weeks of June.
Okay. For 10 days?
17.
17 days. Did you know what to expect from this trip?
I did not, and I'm a person who likes to know everything in advance, so that was part of the adventure. We received an itinerary 2 weeks before the trip, so I had researched the previous years' itineraries, so I had some sense of where we would be going and what we would be doing. But really, a lot of the process was allowing that to be in the hands of someone else and to just be along for the ride.
So how did it evolve? What happened after you got there? I'm sure it was study, it was community, but all of addressed all the pillars of the Dominican rule. But what happened?
So we all met in Toulouse for our bus ride to Fanjeaux, a tiny town in rural southern France, 700 people. Okay, and the first day we had some general introductions. Everyone was assigned to his or her rooms, and we had a group dinner. So it was very friendly, but that sort of initial awkwardness.
How many people were there?
40 people.
Oh, okay. Wow, quite a few.
Yeah, it was a big group. And
From
everyone
all
was
over the world?
From
all over the United States?
all over the United States.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So it was a big group, but everyone was exhausted, so not a lot of socializing that night. And then the next day we started our regular pattern. In the mornings, the faculty and staff had a seminar in which we studied Dominican history, Dominican pedagogy, and talked about how to implement the Dominican values at our institutions. The students had a class on medieval history. So most mornings we spent an hour at breakfast, which was communal, then up to 3 hours in class. We had some time for contemplation that's important to the Dominicans, that we could reflect and absorb and process, and a group lunch, and then field trip every afternoon.
Every day for 16 days, I guess. Were most of these people from college campuses? That's the purpose of this? That's
Right.
the whole purpose of this, is to take it by.
That's what it is, yeah.
So you're locked in here?
Yes. Yes, now I'm stuck forever. It's a serious investment.
Okay.
And the institutions regard it as a real investment in their Dominicanness. And so each institution that is Dominican in the U.S. has at least 2 slots. And most of them tended to divide this up with 1 faculty and staff member and 1 student. When some institutions didn't send their 2, then other slots became available. So some institutions had up to 6 people there.
Oh.
Some institutions were not represented at all.
Okay.
And we sent only 1 this year, which was me. And it's really regarded as professional development for the faculty and staff. And it really is. It's an intense professional development experience. But it did involve a lot of study, and the students had quite a bit of homework because they had a class.
Yeah.
So.
Well, obviously, a lot of the things that were probably taught are a part of your personality and who you are. But what was probably the biggest I don't want to say surprise, revelation. That's very personal. You know, what to you really hit you that you didn't expect?
I was very surprised by the willingness of the Dominican sisters and the Dominican community to hand over part of being Dominican to lay persons. There was a lot of discussion from Sister Colleen Mallon and Father Paul Filbert about this push since Vatican II to extend the mission to lay persons, which to me is a radical concept of faith and trust, to hand that over to individuals who have not made their commitment and do not have their training to live this out and implement that. Mm-hmm. And faculty and staff are part of the lay people at Dominican institutions who have been given this charge and this mission.
Well, and as anyone probably would know if they're out there that happen to be Catholic, or a lot of people that aren't, know that the vocations are just, going downward. And
mm-hmm.
if
right.
we don't rely on the lay people,
mm-hmm.
just as the early disciples,
right.
it's not going to be there. We're
mm-hmm.
very fortunate in Washington County. We have 5 churches, which is very rare, and quite a few priests. Mm-hmm. But there's some places that don't have anybody,
right?
And they just travel in. It's just like the old circuit riders,
right?
So do you? Since you were there with 40 other people, 40, 30, whatever, do you continue to communicate with them with what they're doing, or do you still have any kind of? Especially as you go through the school year,
mm-hmm.
will you still communicate with them?
It was an incredible bonding experience, and really I'm kind of introverted, so that was daunting to me at first, 40 strangers, and I didn't know anyone going into this. But it was wonderful, and they were the best people, and we all are still in contact with various forms of social media and email.
All ages? Were most
yes.
of them?
Yeah. Some of the students, of course, were as young as 18.
Oh.
And some of the faculty and staff members were at retirement age, so it was a diverse group.
Now, the 18-year-olds, were they part of a college campus where they were going to work this as a student, or?
They were. Most of the students were there as a part of a study abroad course experience.
Okay. So they funded their own trip.
I believe most of the institutions provided at least 50% of the funding.
Okay. So what do you plan to do with it? I mean, this is really interesting, and I guess you're not a Catholic,
no,
right? And you chose to take this journey, which is amazing. It doesn't matter that you're not Catholic. I mean, it's a matter of being Christian. I know someone that knows you well and just are amazed at your devotion to the Christian beliefs. But how do you plan, since you're an introvert, but mm-hmm. also you're very visible on campus?
Yes.
What are you going to do with all this?
Well, I really was profoundly moved by the experience, and I took seriously the assignment to take this back to your institution. All that you have learned and experienced, take this back to the institution and help them become more Dominican. And that's something that I was doing in tandem with Sister Mary Louise before I went to the trip, but I'm very inspired to help us do that here.
So will you do it with the faculty, with the students? How
mm-hmm.
Just the staff? I mean, how will you start having, I guess, I don't know what you,
mm-hmm.
Of course this is such a small campus.
It is.
So it will not be difficult.
It will not be difficult.
Yeah.
It is. And we had, I brought back a lot of good ideas, and we've already done a few things. I spoke at opening convocation about what being Dominican means to the student body.
Good.
And
Good.
I also held a faculty forum for any faculty and staff who wanted to come, where I talked about my trip, not only where we went and what we did, but the message of seminar, some of the French Dominicans that we learned about, and specifically that charge that we're all Dominican and we're all responsible for carrying this out, and we're all uplifted and affirmed mm-hmm. by doing so.
Was this the first time you've been to France?
It was.
Was
yes,
really?
Yes.
Well, let's talk about that experience in itself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I had always wanted to go to France. It was always on my list of places I have to go. And certainly I never dreamed I would do it in this intensely Dominican way, but I'm so glad that I did. We spent the first 13 days in the south of France and the final days in Paris, and it was just incredible. I have never seen such beautiful things. I'd been outside of the country before to Israel and Mexico City, but this trip, having that kind of mission in nature, was really a beautiful spiritual experience as well.
And be able to experience the French life and the food.
Oh, the food, yes, the food was amazing.
At the end of the trip, you went to Paris.
Yes.
And you had a friend that visited you there.
Yes, my significant other came to meet me.
And now he's may become your husband.
Not yet, but yes, he proposed on the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, wow. That's so romantic.
It is. It was.
Did the trip change your perspectives? I know you already had the basics of Dominican, but how did it change any of your perspectives about camp? Well, and I'm going to say campus ministry because basically that's pretty much you're going to be a part of that.
It is in a sense.
It is a campus ministry.
It is.
Position, and Mary Sue Barnett's not here anymore.
No, she's not, sadly, and we can only fumble and attempt to fill her shoes. But it really is, and the sense that it gave me was an expanded sense of what I developed on the New York trip, which is that big sense of community. Certainly we have community here. We are tight-knit, and I love that. But the Dominican sisters all over the world have welcomed me in their community, and they're so hospitable, and they share with you, and they care about you. They try to take care of you in a million different ways while you're with them. So seeing Dominicans in New York, seeing Dominicans here, and Dominicans all over France has really given me the utmost respect and admiration for these groups of sisters and what they do.
What about in your personal life? I mean, has it changed anything? I don't know. You're an introvert, but I mean, the experience you had is something I'm sure there's times with your friends that you know eager to share what you learned, not just because of the Dominican, but also just in your the philosophies that you
yes,
have
and
taken
I'm
on.
really interested in the philosophies and the theologies, and not everyone finds that a fascinating subject. But in a personal sense, being here has helped me redevelop a spiritual practice and a spiritual life, and filled a hole. Last time I think we talked about how I was raised in a particular religious tradition that was not serving healthy purposes any longer in my adult life. And so for a few years I didn't really have a spiritual community because I did not want to return to that in the ways in which I did not think it was healthy for young women. But I didn't really have anything to put in its place. And so this Dominicanness and this Dominican community is now serving in this role.
Well, I'm sure it'll be with you for the rest of your life. And you'll find out as you get older, all those things just mean more and more as we go through our years. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I was very excited about being able to interview you. As I said, I laid awake last night thinking, but there's so much to talk to her about. So
it was extraordinary.
Well, what a great experience. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see what your name is the next time you come on the show.
Oh, it's going to be Dr. Tuttle.
Okay. Thank you.
It's always going to be Dr. Tuttle.
Okay.